And from Columbus, Ohio, I'm your host, Robb Dunewood.
And coming out of Philly, it's your girl Tech Lifestyle.
And out of Atlanta, this is Terrance Gaines, a.k.a. Brother Tech, a.k.a. Mr. Candy Corn.
Ew.
What's going on with the candy corn?
Don't like candy corn?
No. Oh, my God. I've hated candy corn my entire life.
It's candy corn season. I may get some and put it up over here behind my shoulder. Put some candy corn right bone back here for the season.
I wouldn't call myself a candy corn aficionado or anything like that, but I grab a handful around this time of the year just because this is probably the only time of the year that I would ever eat it.
I would throw it away when I got it in my bag at Halloween. That was one of the things I would. There was a few different things out my bag I would throw away at Halloween. Candy corn was definitely one of them. I hate candy corn. Blech. Blech.
So normally we would start the show and get kicked off and start talking about tech stories and stuff like that. But we were having a really good conversation in the green room before we started. And I just want you, Steph, to give America or whoever's listening, because I think we have people internationally to listen also. Can you explain how it only took you 2 weeks to fold on getting that new Apple Watch? Because you were sure enough not getting it when it came out.
Well, without getting into putting too much of my
put your disclaimer in there. Say what happened was first.
Without putting too much of my business in the street, I am recovering from some health issues, and I think I'm going to need the AFib detection on the watch.
Oh yeah. So you need that 9. Jack.
Yeah. I need the 9. I have the SE, the older SE, and it has a heart rate thing, but it does not have the AFib detection.
And the EKG or whatever the case may be.
Right. So I do think going forward, God is good. I don't think I have any imminent whatever, but I do think I would feel better going forward having that functionality on a device that I could wear all the time. So I'm like, it might make sense to go ahead and get that 9 and just have it and not need it instead of needing it and not having it. If I'm going to have an Apple Watch anyway, I would rather have an Apple Watch that has that capability and that functionality. So then I might as well go ahead on and get that Series 9. That is my only motivation for getting the 9. I was a little disappointed though that I'm only my SE only qualifies for like $90 on the trade-in. I was like, this joint is like almost like new, like it's in excellent condition. You know what I mean? It literally $90 on the trade-in. I was like, Apple, y'all killing me. Small.
You probably would do better on eBay or something like that if you're just trying to get rid of it.
I still got my Series 8 and I've got my 14 Pro Max sitting in a drawer over there that I'm about to list on eBay, and
I don't want to go through all that. I just want to get,
and it's a hassle. It is seriously a hassle.
I just want to get
like
something
Facebook
for
Marketplace.
it. Yeah, I ain't trying to do all that. I'm just like, I just want to get something for it, and $90 is something towards the $700, the $800 that the watch is gonna cost me. I'm like, God, I ain't got a lot of money. But yeah, like I said, that literally is the only motivation for getting the watch is for that functionality. So it is what it is.
Yeah. My wife has the same issue with her, not same issue. She has heart concerns that we were going to get her a new watch this year. And she's like, well, I was like, well, you get the SE. She's like, well, what's the difference between that one and the watch, the Apple Watch 9? And we did the little compare thing on the website, went down the list. As soon as they said EKG and AFib and all that, she was like, yeah, give me the 9. I was like, yeah, and it makes sense.
Yeah.
And two, my only other thing is go on backmarket.com and declutter. DECLUTTR.
Yeah, I'm familiar. Yeah.
You might be able to get a little bit better of a trade-in versus going straight to Apple.
Okay.
So that's good news for everybody to know, because I know a lot of folks, they have, and I'm one of them. Let's see here. We got 1, 2, 3, 4. I literally have 5 phones and one in a box. This is a BlackBerry. that are all within arm's reach. And there's no reason for any regular mortal to have this many phones
at all.
So, but the reason is because I wasn't going to get a good trade in on it. I just hang on to it. But, I don't want to keep them in a drawer and end up, the battery ends up exploding and tearing up the stuff in the drawer, or worse, catching on fire or something like that. So it is good if you don't really have a use for an older device to get rid of them, or eco-friendly. I don't know even how to say that in an eco-friendly way. Dispose of them so that you're just not doing harm to the environment as much as you can.
Well, I mean, you could do Best Buy has a
Mhm.
recycle program that is supposedly there's some type of world standard for
Mhm.
eco-friendliness or whatever. I know they have a program. I know a couple of my old phones I have donated to domestic violence shelters where they wipe the phone and give them to women that need them for that. So definitely, I try to be as mindful and intentional with my old electronics as possible. But the watch in particular, I'm like, I need to get some money for this watch, especially if I'm
Mhm.
about to go pay $800 for a new one. I need to maximize my return on this trade in on this watch. For real, for real.
So let's keep it on new gear, and let's talk about this new iPhone 15. I know, Terrance, you don't got one, but there's an issue that a lot of people have been reporting on these things getting ridiculously hot. So some folks are even saying hot enough to burn you. I think, Terrance, I put in a group a message to you. You're just asking a question, but hey, is this real? Do you think it's really getting hot like this? Because my neighbor came over and she actually asked me, knowing that I'm really into tech like that. It's like, hey, my phone is really warm. Is this normal for this? And I'm thinking it was just when you set it up type warmness that when you're doing all that stuff, they get warm when you're first setting it up. She's like, well, no, I set it up 3 days ago. It's still hot just in my pocket or just using it. And it wasn't like the some of the reports have been that it was too hot to touch. It just seemed like it was really, really warm. And it turns out now that there actually is an issue, not necessarily with the phone, but with maybe some of the applications that are running on the phone.
Yeah. You got to say a lot of people. You got to use that term loosely. There have been reports of people claiming the iPhone 15, particularly the iPhone 15 Pro and the Pro Max, have been getting a little bit hot. After people started getting them, I think they shipped a week and a little over 10 days ago. And like I said, the tech world, especially these tech websites, they're looking for juicy content. So reports of iPhone overheating, that's all they needed to go. So there's no like definitive answers on, is it 100,000? Is it 500,000? Is it 12? But people are reporting these joints are getting hot. It's been about a week, like I mentioned. There's been some updates, iOS updates since then. But since the phone has been released and since these phones have been out, Apple has finally came back and said, hey, we're aware of people. There's some people complaining or having concerns about iPhone overheating, specifically with the 15s, with this new A17 Pro chip. We want to let you know, first and foremost, it's not a hardware issue. It's not our issue with the chip. It's not more particularly an issue with the titanium. Some people are saying maybe the titanium casing / material is what's causing the phones to heat up. Apple wants people to know, hey, this is not a hardware issue. That remains to
Mhm.
be seen. That's what Apple says. Right now, it could be one of three things. Like Robb mentioned, when people get a new phone, they tend to do the phone to phone transfer, or they do a restore from iTunes or restore from iCloud. Apple was saying maybe the first thing it could be is you're transferring a lot of data, which is kicking off a lot of background services, which could be the cause for your phone working a little bit harder than it normally does. Once those restores are complete, Apple didn't say how long it takes. It could take 15 minutes to an hour to a day. A lot of people feel like once the phone is set up and they say your transfer is complete, that don't necessarily mean all the data is done coming over. There's a lot of services that work in the background that still is working, after you think you've transferred all your data, some stuff you haven't touched yet, pictures, things of that nature. Apple kind of, what's the word? Um, Splits up the restore process. So Apple is saying you could be up to 1 or 2 days after using the phone that your data still hasn't fully transferred to the new device yet. So after that full transfer is done, the temperature will come back down. Second thing they said was there's a lot of apps, third-party apps particularly, they mentioned by name like Instagram and Uber, that
Mm.
as a result of this new chip, the third party app was taking a lot of resources from the chip, which is causing the chip to work a lot. And Apple, according to them, they said they've worked with some of these third party apps developers to remediate that problem, and they're working with some of the other ones to make sure make sure they update their apps to be compatible with this new chip. And then the third thing was it could be a bug within iOS 17 that's affecting some users. In a couple of days, a couple of weeks, maybe a future iOS update will actually fix that. Now, Apple doesn't officially say when they're going to start working on this stuff or when you expect to see any sort of further changes from Apple, but they said it could be one of those three things.
I know there was another thing they said, the USB-C power adapters that have more than 20-watt charging could also be an issue as well. But I feel like, I mean, those all sound very reasonable, don't get me wrong, but I feel like they kind of went out of their way to deflect suspicion away from the hardware. And
They
I
said that
get
quick.
why. Yeah.
Mhm.
And I get why they would have wanted to do that, because obviously you just rolled out a brand new phone. You need these phone sales to reach whatever, target numbers that they need to reach. But it's like one of those "thou doth protest too much" kind of deals, and I
Mhm.
don't know. I'm like, maybe that chip ain't chipping the way it needs to be chipping right now. I don't know.
Especially
I
those
don't
two
know.
features, the USB port, the USB-C port is new, the A17 Pro chip is new, the titanium casing is new.
Right,
So the new things, you don't want those to
Mhm.
be, and it's hardware. You don't want
Absolutely
the
not.
hardware to be the issue because people got to return the phones and they got to go through effort versus
right,
saying, "Oh, we'll just download a update and it'll fix that."
right.
Yeah, I was trying to understand the physics of it when people. I mean, there was a lot of folks going, "Oh, see, that's what you get when you use titanium in a phone." And I'm like, but titanium dissipates heat like ridiculously well. That
Well,
shouldn't be causing the issue.
here's a little inside baseball. The whole case isn't titanium. They use my titanium materials to
Mm.
create the case. So the case isn't pure titanium. So maybe since it's not pure titanium, it don't dissipate heat as much as
And it's just around
traditional
the
a
edge,
full.
right? It's
It's just
just the
around the edge.
edging of the
Well, yeah, it's just
phone.
around the edging. Yeah, yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, yeah. But people, Apple, being the good sales folks they are, will lead you to believe the whole thing is a pure titanium alloy, like a
Pure titanium,
superhero case or
and we're
something,
only
right?
charging you $1,500 for these. Yeah,
right,
there's no way I think it could be,
Right, right.
complete
They
titanium.
need to,
It's like buying a gold brick at that point. So it's like titanium
right,
is not an
right,
right,
inexpensive.
right.
It's not
So
an inexpensive material.
right.
But
yeah, so
it
they
is
did a
good
good
to know
job
though.
selling the product. They did a
It's
good
good
job
to
pitching it. So they
yeah.
don't want the hardware, the main thing they were pitching, to be the issue.
And they did come out and they said Uber, Instagram, these are massive applications. You would have to imagine that most iPhone users has one or the other of those two apps on their phone. So we will see. Apple historically has been pretty good at this, making the news for the last couple of weeks. I don't even know if y'all paid attention to this, but in France, they actually banned for a hot minute the iPhone 12, saying that it didn't, that it was actually getting specific absorption rate. That's like the amount of radiation that was coming out of the phone was higher. It did not meet the threshold that they say it needs to meet in order for it to be considered a legal device in France. So
I
France
think I
literally
read a
banned that device.
I think I read a headline
Yeah.
about that. Yeah.
And, and Apple was like, this is not an issue. This is not a problem. We've got all kind of testing that we've done all over Earth that says this thing is right. So here's what Apple did. We will actually release an update, which they did. They released an update last week that addressed the standard the standards that they use to do the testing. It didn't change how the amount of radiation coming out of the phone. It just changed how they count it based off of software in the phone, which I thought was kind of slick, because they said that this phone is absolutely not something that needs to be recalled. But it only lasted for, I don't even think it was quite a week or 10 days from the time that they banned it till the time that Apple released something. So they're generally pretty good when it comes to their hardware. But I did think that was interesting, because I said, I wouldn't, if it wouldn't have been for the fact that everybody was saying, not everybody, many people were saying that there were issues with heat. When my neighbor came by and just asked me about it, I wouldn't have thought it was a concern. It's like, oh no, it's not really that hot. Just let it, let it die down a little bit. Because I would have thought that, when I get my Samsung phones, when I do the transfer, those things warm up pretty good, because they're, as you said, Terrance, they're doing so much. But then you start reading article after article and seeing video after video, and it's like, okay, what's going on? So I said, well, when we get here on Monday, I'm gonna ask Mr. Snob OS himself, what's going on with these devices. So y'all, a story that came out from Forbes here. It's not really a story. It's just something that they do. So Forbes puts out, and this is the second year of them doing it, their top creators of 2023. This report just came out. And we didn't talk about the 2022 one, I don't believe. We've talked about TikTok specifically, but I don't think we talked about the Forbes report. But I just want to get your take on, the top 50 creators that are on this platform, and what do you guys think of the list? There are quite a few. Well, not quite a few. There are people of color on it, but the thing that kind of stood out to me, there's only a couple Black women on it, and they are right at the bottom of the list. Yeah. But they do list out how they come up with their criteria. So I wanted to just see what you guys' take was on this Forbes list that came out, and just how much money some of these creators are making.
It's insane.
$700 million.
Yeah, it's insane. Well, the one thing I was, only slightly encouraged that I actually knew who some of the people were. Maybe about half of the people I actually recognized on the list. It was also interesting to me that they put their engagement rates on the list for all the YouTubers or whatever, because they weren't super high. I mean, and I guess when you looked at it as a function of their total number of followers, I could kind of see for some of them that had like 9-digit follower counts. You're not going to have a 30% engagement rate if you have 200 million followers, but some of them were like point. They were 5 or
well less than 1%.
Yeah. So I thought that was kind of interesting to note that you could still be, make that much money with that little fight. And I get it, because when I do stuff for brands and I give them my engagement rate, it's 1.3, 1.2, and that's normal. But for some of those folks, I was just like, y'all really shouldn't be getting the kind of deals y'all getting with those engagement rates. But that's a story for another time. And then the other thing that I looked at in particular, but because I talk to young people for a living about how they show up online, the majority of the folks that were in the top 10 were people that were there for being shitty. You know what I mean? And it was just like, what would I be able to say to a young person about being a good digital citizen when they could show me this list and be like, why do I need to be a good digital citizen when the top 10 people when 7 out of 10 of the people on this list are on this list because they're assholes? You know what I mean? Or at least that's how they act to get their money.
Sensational.
You know what I mean? And it really just kind of disappointed me to look at the Logan Pauls of the world and literally in the descriptions of why these people were popular on social media. It would say, oh, well, they faced some controversy this year, but they were able to turn that to their advantage because all they did was just use it to their advantage and make more money and get more. And it was just like, damn. This is basically what we're doing now, as a culture and as a society on social media, is just using asshole as a business strategy, basically.
Yeah.
And it was just like, God, like y'all making my job harder for me, because it's just it just really was like, what do I even say to kids now when they see lists like this and know that there's a market for bad behavior on the internet?
Yeah, I'm
Or
looking at
just not even.
KSI. Go ahead, Terrence. I didn't mean to cut you off.
No, I was just gonna say, if not, you know, being um, polarizing, it's just not necessarily throwaway content, but nothing sort of. And I don't expect people to be inspirational, and I don't expect them to be uplifting, and I don't expect them to want to change the world. But a lot of it is just kind of like, I mean, what are you doing that nobody else on Instagram is doing? What makes you so special is the
Right.
word. And of course, everybody's special. I get it.
No, they're
But
not.
some people, it's like, come on now.
Everybody gets a trophy. Yeah. And it's like,
Yeah, yeah,
well,
yeah. It's like,
it's interesting what passes as entertainment these days, because
I guess, yeah.
it's very different than
Mhm.
when we were coming up, I guess. Like, you actually had to have a
Something to say.
a legitimate talent. No, you
Mhm.
actually had to have a legitimate
Hmm.
talent. You had to be able to
Hmm.
sing for real without auto tune and or you had to have acting capability, or you had to be there had to be something identifiable, and not just I don't know. It's just different, and I
Yeah.
sound like the old person screaming to get off my yard. I know, but it's just different. What passes as entertainment these days? It's just different. It's just different. That's all I
Hmm.
Yeah,
can say.
when I look particularly at the top 10, because the top 10 is where much of the money is being made on this list. Like, I think the top 10 is over $250 million, and
Yeah,
another
it's
40
crazy.
is like another 350. Still, each one of these creators on this list are millionaires. They're making millions of dollars a year on this. But I was just looking at someone like the number two person on the list, KSI. I had heard the name KSI before. But I wouldn't have been able to pick this bro out of the lineup if you had put him in front of me. So it's just not something that caters to me. But I did something. I sent a message to my nephews, who are all between like the ages of like 15 and 19. And they all knew exactly who he
Of
was.
course.
And, were telling me about his streams and this and that and the other, and about that, they're hoping that him and, one of the Paul brothers actually go fight because they think that he will whoop, so they are into it. So it's one of those things where we think about, you used to actually have to have talent in our minds. But you know what? A lot of the people that we get down with, our parents, it's like, this is what's passing for music these days. So
Right.
so so
Right.
it truly is, a generational thing, because
Yeah.
these
Yeah.
folks, although we don't agree with necessarily the kind of content that they're putting out, they are immensely popular.
Yeah.
But what I did like what they're doing on this list, and they did this last year as well, is that they actually have an entrepreneurship category on here that that is weighted fairly heavily, and they go from 1 to 4 points on that.
Yeah.
Four being the most, where you look at some of these creators, you know them because of their of what they're doing on social media, but they're making their money because of companies that they have propped up. In some cases, those companies are directly related to what they're doing with their social media, but in some cases, those companies are just companies that they were able to create because of their fame and stature on social media. And regardless of whether they stay popular on social media or not, those companies are there with dozens, in some cases hundreds of employees that are actively running out there doing the work that they do. So I thought that was pretty interesting. And well, I mean, this is Forbes, so you would kind of expect something like that, but they've actually given this year more weight to some of these folks. But that's it. But there was a thing. It's like, there are black women. There's definitely
There's
quite a
literally
few black
just
women on it.
one black woman on here, like one. There's one.
Okay.
There's two Puerto Rican women on here. Because what's her name? Monet is Puerto Rican.
Okay.
I don't follow Monet, but I do share her. She pops up in my feed on TikTok quite a bit. And then the other girl that's what's her name? She's Puerto Rican as well. I don't think she identifies as black. The
Okay.
only black woman was
Drea
She
knows
was
best.
Dre Okiki.
right. Yes,
Mhm.
Drea. So there was
Mhm.
literally only one black woman on this list out of 50. And the other two, like I said, I think identify as Puerto Rican. And
Okay.
then there were maybe 4 black men. So let's see, there was number 2,
MKBHD,
KSI, MKBHD, KSI, KB
Whiskey.
Lane, and then the boy that
Tyson that.
that got jammed up in Union
Mm,
Square in New York. So
yeah.
there were like 5 black men,
And
maybe
he's
5
the
or
one that
6
has
black men.
he has the highest engagement. It's like ridiculously high compared
Oh
to
yeah, his
everybody else.
engagement was like
His
25 or
engagement is,
30%. Yeah,
yeah,
it was
that's
crazy.
nuts. That's,
Crazy.
that is ridiculous engagement. But it's an interesting list.
Yeah.
I see a lot of different conversations going a different lot of ways. So I think that
And it's just
Forbes
a
said,
list. A
I'm
number
sorry.
overall to me, it's just a list. And it's a list by Forbes. So it's like, I mean, are we really surprised? Were we really hopeful? Were we crossing our fingers, or what were we doing with this list with Forbes?
No, I don't think we were thinking that it would look any different than it does. It's just as it reflects America and the fact that,
Mhm.
America doesn't give black folks the same type of consideration in brand deals and things that they give white people. Um or anybody else, which we'll get to when we get to our main story, which is why we
Mhm.
need organizations like the Fearless Fund. But yeah, it doesn't surprise me. The list is not surprising at all. Um, but yeah, it was like I said, it was interesting. The engagement piece of it was interesting to me. And again, the idea that how do you convince a young person that they should conduct themselves in a certain way online when you have people profiting off of, you know, all types of
What's
bad
trendy?
behavior. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
Exactly.
related to this but unrelated, a podcaster who's got a pretty popular podcast about music. He had made a comment about this. For folks who don't know, this past Saturday was International Podcasters Day. I've met this gentleman a couple of times. His name is Johnny Ray, but he runs a podcast called Q Points, and they talk about hip hop and in the culture and stuff like that. This was actually a really good show. But one of the things that he said was that he was actually telling some folks that, oh, yeah, I'm a podcaster. So he was telling this to black women, and he said that he got this reaction a couple of times, is that when he told a black woman that he was a podcaster, they all kind of took a step back because they were thinking that it was going to be the super negative stuff that a lot of black male podcasters are putting out there that is just, people are listening to it. So, I'm not going to tell folks not to do what they want to do and, put the kind of content out that they want to put the content out. But it was just interesting that he said on a couple occasions, when he said, I'm a podcaster, this is what I do. It wasn't until he explained what his show was about that I'm like, oh, okay, that sounds pretty good. But it's almost like black male podcasters have a stigma attached to us, because some of the more popular black podcasts that are out, it's like all they do is like this red pill, blue pill stuff, bashing women,
Yeah. Yeah.
and it's just like,
Well, it's
yeah,
like I'm looking at, the guy KSI. I've never heard of this guy before, but you said apparently he's pretty popular. But the last sentence in his description on this Forbes list: controversy has followed Olatunji for boxing decorum, misogynistic content, and racist and transphobic slurs, but he always turns the scandals into views both online and in the ring. You know what I mean? So it's just like, what are you gonna
yeah,
do? What are you gonna do? And his follower count continues to grow and his,
continues to grow.
continues to rack up the money. And it's just like, it's ugh,
I
ugh.
don't know. It's like, should African Americans, should we come up with like our own list and have our own criteria? I will give Forbes this
But that's the
bit of
black
credit.
dude.
I will give them this bit of credit. They very clearly and explicitly told you how they were coming up with this list, to the point to where they actually created a podcast that goes along with the article in Forbes, to explain in detail how they came up with it. Because I think they said, you know what, we're not going to take this heat, because no matter what list we come up with, somebody's going to have a problem with it. So things that you cannot ignore: number of users that are following you, how much money you're making. And this may be something that, a lot of creators need to look at. They're pulling these numbers from companies who are known for going out and finding this talent and promoting them and doing that and the other. If you're not signed up with one of those companies, you may not get the same amount of weight that company is putting on somebody maybe who they actually sponsor or whatever the case may be. So that was some of the content, or some of the comments that were being said, is that, oh, so you have to be hooked up with these publishing companies in order for you to get the maximum amount of points in this particular area. And maybe so that might be the case, but at least they're telling you that this is how they came up with it. And you're not sitting here looking at it's like, wait a minute, we can look at the numbers and see that this person is number one. Why are they only number 49 on the list when they clearly are number one here? And it's like, oh no, there's they gave you the math. They give you a calculator and tell you how to do it.
Quantitative process. Yeah, right. Definitely.
So y'all, I would have to, we haven't talked about this, but I would have to guess that each of you at some point has gotten a Netflix DVD in the mail at some point over the last 25 years.
Sure.
But were you aware that last Friday was the last day that Netflix was sending out DVDs?
I was not aware that they were still doing that at all.
Yeah. I wouldn't say that I wasn't aware. I just wasn't really thinking about it, because for me, it has been years since I last got a DVD. But yeah, Netflix decided that this is just no longer congruent with their business model. It just doesn't make sense for them. I'm guessing that there's just not enough people watching DVDs that it makes sense for this company to mail these things out and to actually cover the shipping of those things going back. As compared to just saying, we're just not going to do it anymore, and we're going to shift all that personnel into other places. But yeah, either of you have any thoughts on this? Like I said, I'm trying to think the last time I ordered a DVD. It has probably been at least 7, 8, 9, 10 years ago.
They should have been did this. It looks like in 2021, Netflix's non-streaming revenue, mostly attributable to DVDs, amounted to 0.6% of its revenue. I mean, it was $182 million though. So I mean, that's not a little bit of money, but I guess in the grand scheme of things, it's not a whole lot of money. But they should have been did this. Like,
I'm surprised they're still selling DVD players out there.
That's the thing for me. I was thinking, I have a DVD player in a box somewhere, just because I actually, when my wife and I got married, our stuff went on VHS. But I years ago actually got my VHS, our wedding video transferred over to DVD. So I said, well, we're just going to keep a DVD player to make sure we can always go back and watch it. But now I've taken that thing off of the DVD and ripped it, and it's just in the cloud somewhere, so we can always get to it. We never have to go back to that DVD again.
I thought I had a DVD slot on my desktop here, but I guess not. I could have sworn I did.
I've got one on my nope. I thought I had one. Don't have one anymore.
I swore I had one on my. I guess not.
I have the original Xbox One, and I have a DVD player in it. So right now, if I needed to play a DVD, I'd have to go to the Xbox to actually be able to do it. But it's been years since I last. I'm thinking it's been like 2 TVs ago, because I know the last TV I had when I got that TV, I got rid of like the entertainment system and went to a sound bar. And I didn't put a DVD player back down there, because I had the Xbox and said, well, I'll just use this if I ever need to have it. So it's at least 2 televisions ago, because I just got a new TV probably in the last year. And but yeah, DVDs are a thing of the past. And I'm looking at a lot of different comments, a lot of people talking about this, and one that I thought was really interesting was that my youngest child is 19 years old, and although she understands what rewind something means, I don't know that she really understands what rewind something means. Like that you literally had to take a tape and run it back. And, like back in the day, I used to watch so many VHS tapes, that we actually had a VHS tape rewinder that you would take the tape out of the VCR, put it in here, and it would rewind it really, really fast, but slow down at the end as to not break it. And I know she literally has no concept of that because she probably has never used a DVD other than when she was very young, maybe going and put it into the Xbox for me
So
when
y'all
she was
was
like
like
3, 4,
rich.
5 years
Y'all
old.
was like rich. Y'all had a special contraption just to rewind the tapes.
You know that special contraption was like one of those $9.99 things that
It
you
don't
get off
matter.
of
But
the
the fact
TVguide.com.
that y'all had it,
Yeah, we did have one.
y'all was bougie black people, basically, is what you telling me, because y'all had a special contraption just to rewind your videotapes.
Oh, we had a special contraption just to rewind the
Y'all
videotape.
was bougie black people because we just rewound our tapes inside the VCR like everybody
You
else.
just got to wait, Jack.
Right, you just had to wait, like wait
And
till
like,
it was
and,
rewound.
these is these is our world problems, but it's like
Listen,
to rewind the whole.
bougie
If you're
black
trying to rewind
people.
like the Lord of the Rings or something like that, that could take you like 2 minutes to
Bougie.
do that.
And you had to sit there and
What
wait
you gonna do
2
with them
minutes.
2 minutes?
Wait. Watch something on television until it was rewound and then go back and wait. Bougie black people problems.
All right. I know I'm not the only one. I guarantee you that we have a listener who also had a tape rewinder.
Who was
I ain't
also
the only
bougie.
one.
Who was
We ain't the
also
only one.
bougie.
But Terrance, I know you stuck this one in here. Let's talk about the Cybertruck. That I think it's safe to say that neither one of us believes this thing will ever see the light of day, where people can actually go and buy it. But it missed
Nope.
its Q3,
Yeah,
tentative date that Elon put out for it.
Yeah, he had put a tentative date out there and said maybe kind of we're targeting shooting for an event to announce delivery, not announce a delivery. He wanted to put on an event to announce the delivery date sometime farther in the future, and they couldn't even get that event together. So all that leads me to believe that, and I wanted to get your take on it. Is it the design? Is it just Tesla? And is it, their manufacturing? Is it Elon? What is it about this Cybertruck that was announced way before COVID?
Oh yeah, wait, just years ago they announced this thing.
And it's now the Q3 of 2023, and they can't even get together to come up with an event to announce that the first Cybertruck has been delivered wherever or however they plan on rolling. None of them on a truck, none of them on boats, none of them sitting in Tesla parking lots waiting to be shipped or nothing like that. They can't even get that announcement together. So again, like I said, I just wanted to bring that to the table. What is it about this truck that's taking so long? And do you ever see it coming out at all?
I don't ever see it coming out. So here's the thing: for those who are, who are listening, I just want you to visualize what the Cybertruck looks like. Take a DeLorean, yes, the car from Back to the Future, and mash it up with an El Camino that is a giant El Camino. That is what the Cybertruck looks like. It is stainless steel, and it doesn't really function of a truck. What kind of truck can you not put stuff in the back of the truck from the side of the truck? That kind of that's one of the things that defines the truck. So the way this thing is built, you literally couldn't go to the side of the truck right behind the door where you get in for yourself. You couldn't go to the bed on the side of the truck and literally lift something over the side and set it down in the back of the truck. That is a impossibility unless you are like 6'10" or taller, with this car because of the way that it's designed. So I look at it and I said that when the first time I saw it was that, well, this purely is just, they're designing it. They're going to make it stainless steel to work on it. And, people are going to talk about it because it looks like something that somebody driving around Mars would be driving. But as time went on,
Mad Max.
Yeah, literally. But, as time went on, I'm like, no, they keep saying this is what it's going to look like. And it's like, this will never happen. Here's the reason why I don't think it'll ever come out, because the F-150 is already out. And, car companies have shown you that you can get a pickup truck that has batteries in it that look like a pickup truck. And Silverado will be coming out next year. And what does a Silverado look like? It looks like a Silverado, just has batteries in it. And even the Rivian, what does a Rivian look like? It looks like a little pickup truck that looks like a pickup truck that, any other thing. You wouldn't know that it was a battery operated truck until you see it and it says Rivian and you see the lights. You would just think it's a cute little looking truck. This does not look like a truck. It doesn't function like a truck. And I don't think we will ever see this. Now, they may come out with something that they call the Cybertruck, but I don't think it will have any relationship to what we today know as the Cybertruck, this stainless steel monstrosity that they keep telling us is going to come out eventually. And I just don't believe it.
Well, I think, in just overall, we're starting to see people are starting to realize that the emperor is not wearing any clothes. And Elon Musk just ain't the dude we all thought he was. I don't know. I've been saying it for a while. I'm over it, and I'm ready to move on to the next topic.
So, Terrance, here's a question for you. If it was something that was available, could you ever see yourself getting this?
Well, so I don't buy. Well, let me not say I don't buy into, but I don't. I wouldn't see this and be like, oh, okay, it's got to function as a truck for me to consider it. There are a lot of vehicles out there, just based on the way they advertise vehicles. When they see the commercials, they're like in the mountains doing all this camping and they got all this equipment and they're lumberjacks and all these things the way they do the commercials. But in reality, people just kind of use it for the groceries,
Mhm.
maybe throw some chairs in it and go to, an event or something like that. You need something with some space in the back. So sure, I'll get a truck for that. Most of the time is dropping your kids off at school, maybe taking a vacation, but none of the stuff that you would think I'm buying a pickup truck for, so I don't necessarily buy in that the Cybertruck has to be like that or function like that, but it's just the design of it. I think surprisingly in 2023, I don't think we're ready for this design yet. As far as the way this thing looks, it just looks like a silver doorstop. And this may be too radical, and maybe that's our fault. Maybe we are not, you know, looking into the future of how
I don't think
vehicles
it's
are
our
supposed to
fault. I
look
think
and
it's a horrible design.
that too. I think
I think we
ultimately
can call
what
it
it
that.
is,
I think it's a horrible design.
as excited as people were about this truck, practicality speaking, overall practicality, it's like, nah, ain't nobody really buying this thing. Now maybe later when AI takes over and the Matrix and all the robots take over, and we need something that's going to have a pointy top at the top to stop aliens from jumping on the top of the truck, then Cybertruck is the thing. But I just think it's maybe, the design is all wrong, if you ask me. That's the one reason why I attribute to this thing not coming out. And the reason why the design leads to the manufacturing issues and challenges and all that added up. They're just like, we need to put this on ice or go back to the drawing board.
If I didn't know any better, it wouldn't surprise me if like one of Elon Musk's kids drew this and he was like, "You know what? I'm going to make this into a car. We're going to make a car out of this." X what's his kid's name? AEX6 whatever the kid's name. Like it
16 something or the other.
honestly, cuz this looks like something a kid would do. And he was like, "We're going to make a car out of this." And he made a car out of it just out of because his ego tells him that he can do stuff like that.
Yeah, I just don't see it. And I'm a fan of concept cars. One of the things I actually like to do, I like going to car shows and looking at concepts of cars are not going to hit the road probably ever, but if they were to, we're talking about a decade out. But this wasn't what the Cybertruck was. This was something that we were told was going to come out, and I'm just looking at that and I'm like, I just don't see it. And the fact that it was initially supposed to come out in 2021 and 22, so pandemic, that's the reason that it didn't come out. But now we're in 2023 and we still are nowhere closer to it. So I'm with you, Terrance. I'm not really expecting this thing to come out, and I honestly think that Tesla, at least with this vehicle, has missed their window, because now it is not just, can we convince people to buy an electric truck? You now have to compete with the most popular car in America, the F-150. And I'm saying car specifically because it is the most sold vehicle in the United States. And as you were saying, many people who get that F-150, they're not getting it because they're hauling, a ton and a half of gravel. They're not pulling a 10,000-pound boat. They're not, they don't have, a bunch, a trailer with a bunch of lawn equipment, on the back of it, and they're taking it to a job. This is just what a soccer mom has for her kids, and it's easy for her to throw all her gear in the back without smelling the inside of her truck up. That is what a lot of people buy this for, because they just like it as a vehicle. It will never see off road. Shoot, some of these, there's F-150 that's probably have never seen a gravel road, let alone seen off road. So I think that is what the Cybertruck now has to compete with, because everyone is going to have a truck here in the next 2 years. And I don't see this coming out anytime soon. So I really think they've missed their window. So y'all, this last story that we're going to talk about, I kind of knew as soon as I saw it that this was going to be one. Steph, you sent me a message on Saturday or Sunday. It's like, hey, we definitely talking about this. Is going to be our main story. So Steph, I'm going to let you go ahead and kind of set it up. Let us know what's going on with with this venture capital firm based out of Atlanta.
So the Fearless Fund is an Atlanta-based venture capital firm, but they have been ordered recently to pause grant applications that support primarily Black female founders due to an ongoing lawsuit alleging racial discriminations. On Saturday, September 30th, the 11th Circuit Court of Appeals in Atlanta blocked the fund from continuing with its Fearless Strivers Grant Contest, which awards $20,000 investment to Black women entrepreneurs. The application was set to close on Saturday, but now must remain open until the further order of the court. The lawsuit represents a broader issue. So, conservative group American Alliance for Equal Rights, started by Edward Blum, who also just was instrumental in overturning affirmative action in college applications and admissions, allege that the fund is racially discriminatory because it specifically caters to Black women. Never mind that Black women receive less than 1% of the $288 billion that venture capital firms deployed in 2022. They're trying to, quote unquote, level the playing field. So basically, the original judge actually sided with the Fearless Fund. The original judge in Atlanta said that there was no discrimination and that the Fearless Fund was correct in their free speech, in their First Amendment free speech protection, and they had a right to express their belief in the importance of Black women to the economy through charity. So they had actually been allowed to continue to use their venture capital fund for the benefit of Black women through charity, their right to express themselves through the First Amendment. But in the appeal, there was a 3-panel judge, 2 of whom were appointed by Donald Trump, that overturned the initial
Mhm.
judge's decision, saying that the ruling was overturned by a 3-judge panel during an emergency motion that was filed by Edward Blum and his group. 2 of the judges who were appointed by Donald Trump. They argued that the fund was substantially likely to violate a federal anti-discrimination statute that they used based on a Civil Rights Act from 1866 that totally does not apply in this case. And the dissenting judge said it is a perversion of congressional intent to use the law against a remedial program whose purpose is to bridge the gap in venture capital funding for women of color founders, a gap that is a result of centuries of intentional race discrimination. So basically, this guy, who has already shut down affirmative action at Harvard and the University of North Carolina, decides to go after this small group of women who were only looking to level the playing field for Black women in venture capital, who only receive 0.36% of $288 billion in venture capital funding. And they're only getting 20 grand a piece. You know what I mean? It's not like
Mhm.
Black women are these Black women were giving other Black women billions of dollars. They were giving them 20 grand to basically keep their lights on at their companies and just get by. But this guy decided, I'm gonna go after these women, and now there's been a stay, and they have to figure it out. So I'm just incensed at this point that this is where we are. And I did a little bit more digging into this man, this Edward Blum character, and it's interesting because this guy is a liberal, well, claims to be liberal, but he's a Jewish attorney, who grew up in a liberal family, who seems to have gotten a little bit off track in his crusade to make America this truly colorblind place. I read a New York Times article that he did, an interview that he did right after the affirmative action, the college case that he did with Harvard in North Carolina, University of North Carolina. And the woman interviewing him asks him this question. She said, I am wondering if you believe in systemic racism, racism embedded in the institutions of American life. Because if you look at the statistics in this country, a typical white family holds 10 times the wealth that a typical black family does. There are currently only 8 black CEOs of Fortune 500 companies, 20 Latin CEOs. Black people live sicker lives and they die younger than white people. I could go on. He says, no, I do not believe in it. What your question implies is that in the American DNA, there is racism. It was founded upon racism. It is part of what this country is. I reject that.
Just because you direct
Yeah.
it, don't make it not
It-
true.
Right.
yeah.
And so I'm just like, this guy is not living in this country for real, for real. He's not living on this planet. Cause,
Well,
cause I
so
mean,
No, he
so I
is.
think so I think the argument is because the founding fathers didn't outright say no black people, no Asians, no Mexicans, right? They didn't say that. All these institutions that we've built, real estate, all these other things that white people have used as vehicles to create wealth in America, because the powers that be didn't specifically say no black people, no Asians, no Latinos, no Mexicans, no things like that. That now that we're trying to bridge the gap, catch up, in order for us to do that, we have to say this is designed for black people, this is designed for Asian people, this is designed for, that's where their issue is. Now, if these ladies would have just called this the Fearless Fund, looking to create start capital with startups, and the way I'm reading it is, and if they just called it that, but only accepted mostly black people, and maybe that 0.1% maybe went to a white person or something, then it
well,
would be okay. But as long as we didn't call it or say the goal or the
the
mission or the vision
semantics,
is for
get
black people,
Mhm.
black women,
and
right?
get it in the semantics. And this is where I think they may be able to do that, because I looked back at the section, because what he used to make his case, it's section 1981 of the Civil Rights Act of 1866. So he went all the way back to fucking
Mhm.
1866. And what that says is all persons within the jurisdiction of the United States shall have the same right in every state and territory to make and enforce contracts, to sue, be parties, give evidence, and to the full and equal benefit of all laws and proceedings for the security of persons and property, as is enjoyed by white citizens, and shall be subject to like punishment, pains, penalties, taxes, licenses, and extractions of every kind. It says in there, as is
Mhm.
to be enjoyed by white citizens. So I think there is something in that phrase that you can make a case for, because if it's as is to be enjoyed by white citizens, then there needs to be something better than 0.36% of 288 billion, because that's white citizens are enjoying more than that. So then if I'm supposed to be enjoying like white citizens, then I should be enjoying more than 0.36% of 288 billion. And I should be able to do that on my end with my money in my fund as well. So they need to get the lawyers on the language, because I know
Yeah.
there's something in that language that we can make work.
No,
know there's something in that language.
so there's a couple of things here. So number one, you see how far they went back to get a law. That
Right.
law was created during Reconstruction.
Right.
That's actually when, we're going to free slaves, and we're actually going to allow them to be full citizens. Reconstruction lasted for what, 18 years? I don't. Somebody's going to quote me on that. It didn't last very long,
Right.
because shortly after Reconstruction came Jim Crow.
Right.
How nice would it have been for this lawyer to actually be around back in Jim Crow, so he could have fought all them laws using this?
My guess is his designs would have been a little bit different, but
maybe just a little bit different.
Mhm,
But
mhm.
I just want to point this out. So $288 billion in 2022. African American women got 0.39% of that. That is $1.123 billion. $1,123,000,000 is what African American women got last year, compared to the $288 billion that went to everybody else. And what this gentleman is doing, and it's not just him. This isn't just him doing this. There are probably all kind of conservative think tanks and things that are behind, regardless of what he says he's liberal or not. There's
Right.
somebody who's funding
Absolutely.
this crusade to go after this. So basically what he's saying is that, yes, because you specifically said that you want to, correct, or you want to take into account that only $1,123,000,000 went to African American women, when a whole 288 billion went to everybody else, or 287 billion went to everybody else. That's not what I'm really concerned with. I'm concerned with the fact that you said that this can only go to Black women. Let me find a law where that's illegal, and that's what we're going to challenge you on, because we don't want you to do this thing. We don't want you to create a fund that is just for Black women. So what I'm wondering now, I'm kind of where you were at, Steph. Might they have to reconstitute this thing and say, you know what? Everyone is welcome to apply to this. We're just going to make sure that
only 3.36%
0.39% goes to somebody else.
They don't even have to do that. All they can do is, anybody that comes in that room that doesn't look like them, they can just say, oh, they weren't a culture fit. Because that's what they say to us.
Yeah.
That's what they say to
absolutely.
us. We don't even get in the door. Oh, she's not a culture fit. Oh, he wasn't a culture fit. Oh, we looked at applicants. We couldn't find any. You don't even have to look for none. Just say we couldn't find any. We couldn't, and they weren't a culture fit. Oh, we looked at a bunch of them. They just weren't a culture fit.
I'll go to here's a question that I'm going to ask, and I know both of you are going to smile when I ask it. What color was the Good Blue Magic hair grease that your grandmama used to use? If you tell me blue, you're automatically disqualified from getting this.
That's on the application. Is that what you're saying?
That's on the application.
Right.
What color is Blue Magic? Not regular Blue Magic, the good kind that grandmama used to use.
The Good Blue Magic.
The good kind.
That's right. That's right.
The good kind that had the whole kitchen smelling like steak hair when you was getting your hair did back in 1978. But it really bothers me that it's like, out of everyone that you could go after, this is who you pick.
Well, he
$20,000.
He was being very strategic, because he knew he'd be able to beat them over the head,
to lean on them,
and use time and legal pressure to get this smaller organization
and to get a win.
Yes, and get this win and set this precedent. He went after the little guy. He bullied the little guy to set the precedent to go,
which
after
is not
the
uncommon in America.
Yeah, exactly. He was playing chess. I can't be mad at the strategy, because that's what you do. But I hate that he's being so disingenuous about his intentions, because he claims to want this sort of colorblind. Like I said, you read that New York Times article. He's being hella disingenuous about wanting this colorblind society, and believing that America is this place where, if you just get rid of race-based consideration, we will be this true merit. And it's not true. America's not founded on meritocracy in that way that you claim that it
Mhm.
is, and would be if we would just stop considering, affirmative
And it won't
action. And it's just like,
and it
stop
won't get
it.
there if he's thinking we're starting at 0 right now. We are
Right.
definitely not starting at 0 right now.
Exactly.
We're
Exactly.
starting behind, and there's no
Mhm.
way to
Exactly.
catch up if things are just equal.
Exactly. And he's being
Yeah.
hella disingenuous. And
He,
I'm just like, go sit down somewhere,
he
man. I
he
don't know
sounds
where
like one of
you
those folks that tells you, "Oh, I don't see race. I don't see color."
right.
Like you don't. You can't tell there's a difference between my skin tone and yours. I just always think that is just so disingenuous when someone says that, because
Yeah.
saying that you don't see it is almost like saying I don't want to see it, so I don't have to deal with it. And he's going even further. I don't want to see it. I don't want to deal with it. So I'm going to go deal with it in this way to make sure that it doesn't happen. I want everybody to be on an even playing field, even though that playing field isn't even. So here's what I'm wondering was that's going to happen. So yes, the appellate, they took this up, to a higher court. The appellate court has 3 judges sitting on it, 2 ruled against, 1 for. But this hasn't actually gone through. They haven't actually tried it yet. This is just, can they actually continue to give out their grants while this goes through court?
Right.
I'm guessing that at least in the court that it's actually sitting in, they're probably going to, win it, because the judge has already said he just didn't see where there was injury. And one of the reasons that he's saying, I don't see where there's injury, because you are trying to rectify the fact that only 0.39% of this money goes to black women. So you're creating a situation to where we're going to specifically go to this group that is so wildly, underserved in this area. Because if all things being equal, what are African Americans in the United States? About 12, 13%.
12, 13%.
So at the very least, in this person's world, 12, 13% should be coming to African Americans. When you look at the number of black businesswomen, there are more of them than there are black businessmen. So it seems like of that 12, 13%, the lion's share should be going to women, simply because women start more businesses in the United States than black men do. So that's not the argument that he's making. He's making the argument is that, but you said this is only going to black women, which means it's not going to Asian women, it's not going to white women, it's not necessarily going to Jewish women. So we are going to sue you. And
I'd be
I
like, all
hope
right,
that the
sue me.
court
I'm gonna
figures it
change
out.
the mission. I'm
Yeah.
gonna change the mission, and I'm gonna change the vision, and I'm gonna just take out 4 black women and just give it all to black women anyway. Problem solved. That's petty me. I
And
ain't
and that
fighting
and
this
that's the
fight.
thing. It's just it is. Like, honestly, and I think they want, and they've done it, and like Jewel Burke Solomon, and some other people who cater specifically to black women in the venture capital space have said, we're not going to be scared into changing our missions. And I
Mhm.
get that you want to kind of stand on your
And I fully
Because
cause,
you're
expect
doing
you
it
to.
for a
and
purpose.
right,
Right.
There's an
right.
actual
And
purpose.
right, but if we are going to have people like this that are going
A
to be very
nitpick.
intentional about trying to tear these institutions down, it may be worth it to go back and just look at the language. I mean, if it's going to just be a matter of a couple of words, I don't know. I mean, on one hand, I am all about raising a black fist in the air and be like, f these cats, let's just keep fighting, and just, but damn, like,
No,
why I gotta be like this?
no,
Like, let us.
Yeah.
you're
But
going to
then
see,
go ahead, Rob.
you're going to see other funds that are going to come around. And in their mission, they're going to have, they're not going to say that this is specifically for black women. This is specifically for black men. They're just not going to say that. That means that's not what they're going to do. That's just not what they're going to say. Oh, anyone can apply, but we're going to
I
pick
know, but
those
it's
companies that are culture fit for, for our investors that are investing, with us. There is a certain type of company that we want to go after, and we're going to make sure that anyone who applies, as long as they meet that criteria, we are going to, we're going to
right.
allow this, to be open to anyone.
But
So
it's
I'm
sad
very
that you
interested.
have
This
to
is,
even change up,
Jump those hoops.
yeah,
yeah, and switch it up like that. And it's just like, come on, man.
yeah.
Just but then, this guy and people like him will be the same ones to say, well, why don't Black people just help themselves? Why don't they just pick themselves up by their bootstraps? Why are they always asking for handouts? And then when we do for ourselves, as we are right
Right. Hey,
now,
hey,
Burn your
hey, hey,
town
don't quit
down.
all that.
You know,
now you want to sue, and like, so what do you want? What do you want exactly?
and
Like, you
now you
can't
got
have your
some,
cake and eat it too. You know what I mean?
you
It's
know,
just
Tulsa, Oklahoma, Greenwood, the Greenwood area of Tulsa,
it's
Oklahoma,
like,
Black Wall Street. That is not the only Black town that was burned to the ground and its residents literally slaughtered because it was doing too well. And folks who didn't look like them said, no, we need to go take this over. And not only that, you burn the town down and then take the land from the people who were the righteous owners of the land. That has happened so many times. So, but this is probably for another show, but we're getting to where we don't even want to talk about that kind of stuff in history classes anymore.
right,
They're like, why are we going to be talking about the past? It's like,
right.
it makes
Because
it
Well,
easier to
God
repeat
forbid
it. Don't
somebody's
talk about it.
feelings get hurt by the truth.
Yeah, I just in my quote, on my comment with a quote that's super popular. When you're accustomed to privilege, equality seems like oppression.
Yeah,
And that's
all the
exactly what
time.
this sounds like.
You ain't joking, Jack.
Exactly.
That is right.
Exactly.
That is absolutely right. So y'all, we didn't have any new patrons this week, but here's what we did have. We got a couple of raises. So, first one I'll mention is Winfred Christie became a yearly subscriber. So we actually made a change a little bit earlier this year where instead of some folks are saying, I don't want to have to get my credit card hit every single month. Is there any way you can, get into the, a yearly subscription, which by the way, if you do a yearly subscription, it's 14% off of what you would normally get. You basically pay for 10 months instead of 12. But Winfred Christie became a yearly subscriber. So we want to shout them out. And then Lugoon actually gave us a raise. And this is not the first time he's done this. So not only did Lou give us a raise, he actually, hit me up directly and like, hey, is there any way I could do a tip or something like that? Because he's like thinking for like the holidays, like, hey, I would just like to do a tip, but I don't want it to be like a regular yearly thing. I just like, if I got something, I want to just give something. I'm putting words in his mouth, but he basically is asked specifically for that. So we've actually gone out and set up a buy me a coffee for the Tech Jawn as well. And I'll tell folks how to get to there. If you go to buymeacoffee.com/Tech Jawn, you can go there and you can just buy us a coffee or 2 or 3 or however many you would like. And it's just a one-time thing. You don't have to sign up for the membership with Patreon. I wish that Patreon would actually give that as an option. It is one of the most requested things that people who run Patreon like us are asking for, but they haven't done it. So we went ahead and set up a tip jar over on buymeacoffee.com. So once again, head over to buymeacoffee.com/the Tech Jawn. And if you would like to become a patron and support the show, there are multiple tiers that we have over there, any one of which gets you access to our live stream. We are recording the show live right now on the internet and our after party that we're going to do in about 90 seconds. So head over to patreon.com/the Tech Jawn. Any one of those tiers gets you access to that. The top 2 tiers get you access to an ad-free stream. So if you're listening in your podcatcher, you can actually listen without hearing our ads at the beginning, the middle, and the end of the show. So with that being said,
change the name. Maybe we should change the name to, instead of Buy Me a Coffee, maybe we should call it I don't know, maybe like a tip drill. No? Anybody?
No,
No?
no,
No, not a good idea? Tip drill?
no.
nah.
No?
And I'm mad you would even bring that up, Terrance. Like, you know better. you know better.
For those who don't know what Terrance is talking
not a
about,
good
stick
idea.
around to the after party.
You know better.
Stick around to the after party.
Come on,
So
man.
Tech Life Steph, what tell the folks how they can get at you?
You can follow me all around the web at Tech Life Steph. Check out StephanieHumphrey.com and pick up my book on Amazon.
And you can find me all over the internet at Brother Tech. That's BROTHATECH.
And I'm at Robb Dunewood on all the things. And we are also at the Tech Jawn, the Tech JAWN on all the things. And for those who are concerned about what's happening with Twitter, or I should say X, in case it's going to become a pay for play for everybody, we definitely are hanging out over on Threads as well. Once again, it's at the Tech Jawn, the Tech JAWN. So until we meet again in a week's time, peace.
Peace.